is Janos Martenyi, and this is a new episode of My Pride, My Story. My guest today is Juan Pigot, an activist from Paramaribo, Suriname, and we're going to talk about his coming out and how he's fighting for equal rights in his country. Juan, how was to come out there?
Well, for those people who don't know where is Suriname, Suriname, it's a small country on the northeastern coast of South America. We became independent in 1975, and before that we were part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The LGBT situation has always been kind of hidden, I guess, like everywhere in the world. But for me, growing up here in Suriname, there was actually no such thing existing. I guess so. And I left Suriname in 1995 after I finished high school here. And then I went to the Netherlands to study. I mean, deep inside, of course, I knew for a long time that I was gay, but yes, it's very difficult. It was very difficult, I guess, at that time in Suriname. And I was seeing moving to the Netherlands as a chance to come out and to, when you move to another city, things, and especially to Amsterdam in the 90s, which was at that time the gay mecca of Europe. I really wanted to actually move out and to start my life. So I moved to the Netherlands, and it still took another 2 years before I came out in Holland. So in 1997, I came out first to my friends. After I told my family, and yes, that was not so easy. My coming out to my family. Because I grew up in a very religious, very Roman Catholic family, being the youngest of 3 boys. It was very macho. Sports was always high on the agenda in our family, and being, succeeding, winning. So this was, and I mean, I was like this because I was raised like this, and till today I'm still very much still a competitive person in sports. But that is something that we learned from home, that you always have to give your best. And I was quite a good tennis player when I was younger, and my brothers as well. So we were raised quite competitive. And when I came out, it was kind of hard, I guess, for my parents with the religious background. I was very happy that my brothers were super supportive. They at that time were also living in the Netherlands, studying there. So it was I was happy that they supported me, as well as my group of friends. Also, I had some friends who also moved from Suriname to the Netherlands to study. I had my friends in Holland. So I had a good base of people, a good support base, except at that time my parents.
And how was the reaction of your parents?
And at first, I think devastated. They didn't see it coming. And so it was also a time when there was no information. So at least nowadays, you must imagine, because 1997 was basically the beginning of of that internet became like wider accepted and wider used. I still remember my first email address, which dates from those days, you know. So uh, so yes, my parents, we had a tough time. My mom somehow was much faster, much quicker in eventually uh, accepting me as I am. For my father, it took longer. But the interesting thing is, once my parents were they gave it a place in their life, they became they turned 360 degrees and became enormous supporters and allies. So when I moved back, because I lived in the Netherlands for about for 12 years. After my studies, I stayed there for a while, and I moved back in Suriname in 2007. Then I said, well, I had lived abroad. I had seen how the LGBT community and activism developed. Because also in 1995, it was very interesting in the Netherlands, because that was first when the first talks about same-sex marriage came around. With eventually that the same-sex marriage was legalized in 2000 or 2001. So that process was very interesting to see it as a young upgrowing adult in the Netherlands. So when I moved back to Suriname in 2007, I said, that I think that I can, with the knowledge I have from the Netherlands, and the drive to make a change, I thought, well, maybe there are some things that we can do in Suriname for the LGBT community. So what I did, together with some friends, we started an organization for LGBT professionals. People who have a bachelor plus education level, and who want to give back to society in general, but obviously the LGBT community specifically. So we started an organization. The name is Parea. And this year we celebrate our 6-year anniversary. The idea is that we combine our social but also our professional networks, and then we try to give back to society, and we do that in different ways in the areas of human rights, awareness, education, training, and also a little bit of health. Because we believe, and that is really my drive for this organization, is that I think that higher level officials like politicians, but also higher level officials in companies, so like the CEOs, the human resource managers, are more willing to listen to their peers who are peers on the education, and then also on the work level. So what we try to do with our organization is to have a top-down approach. So our organization is going to write to a CEO for company X and tell them, okay, we have this plan. Do you mind if we come by to speak? And and actually it works because uh, a lot of these people I know them professionally from work, or they are my running mates, or friends that so it makes it easier to open doors on the top level. um, and this is our has been our strategy for the last 6 years.
And how you approach those companies, and what are you talking about when you visit them?
What we believe in is that if we can establish equality on the work floor, in the workspace, that this will eventually also trigger the government to think more inclusive. So what we did, and we work closely, for example, with embassies from countries that have LGBT legislation at home. So we work, for example, very close with the Dutch embassy in Suriname, or the U.S. embassy and the French embassy, the Canadian embassy, and so we use these connections because these embassies they also have the policy, so they are also very good um, uh, allies when we try to build a case. So our strategy is to have employers change in their work environment the attitude and the way how things are done. So we ask them, for example, can you make your general work agreement? Can you uh, can you make it equal? So let's not speak about a man and a woman, but let's speak about a partner. So my partner can get also the same. So my partner will get the same benefits as heterosexual couples. Um, and actually, the strategy it worked.
How do you know that it worked?
Because now we have about 70 employers. We created a document which is called the Declaration of Paramaribo, which is called after the capital of the country, that we offer to employers, and where they state, okay, in our organization, we are not discriminating based on sexual orientation. And at the same time, it's a roadmap for them to implement equality, because I mean, it's one thing to say it, but it's also another thing to really implement it. So, and we have now about 70 employers, and of course we have a lot of small companies with less than 10 employees, but we have some of the biggest companies in Suriname that signed that declaration.
So it means those employers are also hiring LGTBQ plus people, no?
The idea is that um, and it's interesting because once we come to these companies, because usually it is you have a discussion with either the CEO or the human resource manager, and when we try to try to tell them, they say, yes, you're right, we didn't look at it from that perspective when you speak about partner, and it's actually just a simple word that you have to change in your general work agreement. So they are very very open. And what we hope is, and obviously what we do is, we have once every 3 or 4 months, so like on specific dates, for example May 17th, which is IDAHOT, or on December 10th, which is the International Day again for Human Rights, that we organize signing ceremonies for this declaration. So before we start a process where we start to target companies and start to tell them, and then when they agree to sign, we say, okay, on that specific date, we will have a signing ceremony. We invite the press, so nobody can say, oh no, we didn't sign it. We make kind of a media spectacle of it. Um, and what you see now is that we are also, because it comes into the news, luckily here in Suriname, the media is one of our big allies. So the government is also seeing what is happening.
How are the laws are protecting LGBTQ plus people in Suriname?
We have, in general, discrimination is in our constitution. It says that discrimination based on race, sex, blah blah blah. Like most countries, they have a list. But then at the end of the list, they also say discrimination of any other kind. They don't specifically say they don't speak specifically about LGBT, but they talk about discrimination of any other kind is prohibited by law. Then in our uh, 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 I think it's called the Criminal Code of Conduct. There is also a law that specifically says that discrimination based on sexual orientation is not allowed in Suriname. So how that got into that law, I don't think anybody knows, but probably when they were ratifying international, when you ratify an international agreement, or then you have to do it in your own laws back home. So probably that is how it ended in the in our law, but in general, so that is if you look at the legislative part. But if in general, I think that Suriname has really moved forward a lot compared to 1995 when I left the country to study to now. We have, for example, we have a gay pride in Suriname that is being held every year since uh, 2000, I think 11 was the first time that it was held, and it grew from a couple of people, let's say 100, to last year we counted like 2000. So it looks like our society is moving definitely forward. We have one big advantage. Yes, we do not have the old British laws, because like they have in lots of the Caribbean islands, what you see in Africa is happening. So there, because in those countries they already start with a negative. You start uh, while in Suriname, at least we have we start at zero. In Trinidad and in Jamaica, they start at -10, let's so to speak. Um, the other advantage that we have is that there is still a big connection between Suriname and the Netherlands. In Suriname, we have about 600,000 people living there, the population. And in the Netherlands, you have about 300,000 people of Surinamese origin. So you can imagine that our societies are, we are woven. We have daily flights between Suriname and Holland. Was of course pre-corona. Um, but so we have uh, and people from the Netherlands, they bring their own kind of liberal spirit and liberal mind, and how the way they live in the Netherlands, they bring it to Suriname when they come here on holidays. So it is much easier for a parent in Suriname to accept, because maybe they had already seen a cousin or someone, or a brother and sister who lives in Holland, who is from the community. So yes, we are moving in the good direction, I think.
You already mentioned that you have a pride in your country, but was your first pride experience in Suriname or already in Holland?
No, my first pride was in Holland. Yes, my first pride was in Holland, which was, of course, and the interesting thing was that at that pride, I just moved to the Netherlands, and I was still not out of the closet. So, and I think I also got there just by chance. Again, it was pre-internet in 1995, so it was not, you know, that these things you could, that the news would spread in 2 seconds once you put it online. Um, so that was my first actual encounter with the LGBT community. Because once when I was in Holland, even though I knew I was gay, I was not looking for anything. I mean, I was in the closet. I was living with one of my brothers. So I was in the Netherlands. I was part of at university, part of a fraternity, which is also, you know, quite macho. And um, so I wasn't really looking for the LGBT community, and this pride was just by chance that I got there. And yeah, I think that is when I started to realize that things were right there in Holland. You just had to go and look for it. And I think that after that pride, I started to more and more try to get information. In those days, it was still a lot through books. Um, so you had the stores in you had bookstores in Amsterdam with, you know, with huge gay sections. And so that is where I started to read and to find information about being gay.
What would you say? What is the biggest difference in a pride of Amsterdam or in a pride in Paramaribo?
Obviously, the size. That's but okay, we have much less people. Um, what I think we in I don't think that in Suriname during the Pride. So when I say we had last year, we had about 2,000 people, which is a lot if you look at it at our population. Um, we don't have a lot of people that necessarily that are probably that are out, but probably that necessarily need to or want to be open and on the front. So they are open about it, but they don't necessarily need to parade in a pride. Um, so what you see that what happens is that when we have the parade itself, that is still kind of it becomes more and more of a party, but it is still more of a political statement where we try to ask the government for attention. And then when we have the festival, usually there is a pride, a party or a festival after the pride, and that is what attracts lots of people, lots and lots of, but also also allies. Just not just the gay community comes to this party. It's a big fest with lots of uh, heterosexuals, which I guess is more or less similar of what we have seen happen in the Netherlands, where now the gay pride in Amsterdam, a family affair. People really come to Amsterdam for the gay pride, and they come from everywhere. And we see that happening now more and more. That that especially the younger gay community, where things seem, I would say, easier for them now. And they just bring their friends from high school and they say, oh, yes, let's go to gay pride. So, oh, yeah, let's all go to gay pride. So, yes, that is a very, very good development.
And for my last question, what do you think, what is the most important our community has to fight for in Suriname?
I personally, and that is what I made into my mission, is that eventually I want that we get recognition of same sex relationships, and that doesn't necessarily mean that at this stage we are looking for a same-sex marriage, because that might be still a bit difficult. But we can look at the registered partnership, and if you look at the community in Suriname as a whole, I think that um, that the community is ready, and the community is not going. Of course, you will have people who object, but I think that the community in general doesn't see it as an issue. But we have to get the laws, huh? So that is something that I still have for myself as a target in life.